Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello, possible people, and welcome back. So excited to have you here. Thank you for continuously just coming to listen. I was just talking to a group of people yesterday about the fact that, I don't really always highlight the podcast as much as I should, but I'm like, this podcast is incredible. Not necessarily because what I do, but the guests that I get to have conversations with, I always receive value from. And so obviously, if you're listening for the first time today or you've come back a few times, thank you for listening. Because you listening helps me continue this Pay It Forward podcast to deliver you some really cool people that you can hopefully learn from as I'm learning from them along this wonderful journey of life that none of us get a roadmap or instruction manual to. And we can do it 1,000 different ways. So I'm really excited today because there is actually a very creative side of me. It may not be creative musically, although I do love to karaoke. I'm not going to lie, Cliff, okay? But I do love karaoke. But I'm not necessarily creative in the creative space of like music or art, but I feel like I'm very creative in writing and then also just making things out of nothing. I really just enjoy that. But sometimes we can have like these dreams or goals that we have that are maybe creative, but at the same time, we have to adult and be responsible and, also pay the bills. And sometimes it's hard to find that balance. So if that's ever you, that like you have a dream on your heart and you're like, I really want to do this, but here's the struggle between like, Christy, I still need to, again, be able to feed myself and all those kind of good stuff, then you've come to the right episode today. Because Cliff is who I have with me, Cliff Beach. He's not only an award-winning musician, but he's also a radio host, beauty tech exec, and the author of Side Hustle and Flow, The Daily Grind. And what's a cool fun fact that I'm really curious about this, Cliff, too. He was on American Idol in 2003, but he was eliminated. And then he just figured out, okay, how do I build the path from here when this didn't end up the way that I would hope or expected? And so I'm really excited to welcome Cliff to the show. So welcome, Cliff.
Thank you, Christy, for having me. Excited to chat today.
Yeah. Well, okay. So tell me a little bit about yourself, because I'm a sucker for a story about maybe a little bit about your life and what drew you to music and writing and all of those things that even landed you on American Idol in 2003, which seems so long ago, but that was when it was the height of American Idol, right? Like that was when what was the first season? Was it like 2000 or 2001?
Yeah. Okay. So 2001, because that was season 3 in 2003, and obviously the first season was Kelly Clarkson, who was the breakout star, and then I think in season 3 that was the Ruben Studdard, Clay Aiken, I think time from that season. So
Okay.
that anchors you back to that. But the 2000s was an interesting time because I had just finished up conservatory at Berklee College of Music. So to go backwards, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I grew up in a family of ministers. So I knew early on growing up, I liked being in front of people. I didn't want to become a preacher, but I think that there's a lot of elements of that on the stage.
Okay.
And
So you were
so,
a PK. You were
yeah.
a PK, a preacher's kid.
Yeah, it's like my grandma, my aunt and uncle, my other aunt and uncle, so pretty much everyone but me and my mom. Even though not everyone is called to preach or do whatever, I think everyone can minister. I think everyone can be helpful in the way that they can benefit society. It was great because I grew up with a lot of like Christian and gospel music, so a lot of joy, a lot of love, a lot of celebration, even through difficult times. I was able to see like how music got you through certain things because life has these difficulties and people are like, well, how did you get over it? You don't actually get over anything. Like, if you lose someone or whatever, you don't get over that. You get through it. It just allowed you to have something that was bigger than yourself to attach to. And it was very aspirational, very inspirational. But I grew up into liking other styles of music. My grandma was super into kind of those old movie musicals, we had the VHS, like, double cassettes, of different things,
Right,
and then
bring me back, Cliff.
yeah. Then I also grew up on, the Disney stuff, like, that was the height of, like, Disney's second, not the kinda Snow White phase, but when we were getting into, like, Little Mermaid and Lion King and all that, like,
Yeah.
that was my time, and then
Me too, me too. I
yeah,
used to
even
think
though
I was Ariel, real talk. I'm like, "Just give
right?
me my fins and put me in the swimming pool. I'm a legit mermaid."
Yeah, I mean, just so much about that. I mean, before I knew about music, but just now knowing about Alan Menken and Howard Asher and how they created that stuff and just where they pulled these elements from. Finding out that Ursula is like half divine, this drag queen. Like it's a whole backstory. But it's just interesting how the music, watching the Merry Melodies and Warner Brothers and stuff. Like I learned classical music or I learned musical theater. I learned pop songs from, Alvin and the Chipmunks and stuff like that. So it was like I was always absorbing music. I loved to read. I loved, just hearing stories from people. I loved listening to like audio. There's a picture of me on one of my album covers. It's called Little Beach. Beach is my last name. Um, and it's like a baby photo of me. I'm on this big Walkman. So like the Walkman is like as full as my body. And
I love
yeah,
that.
I just listened to like Bible tapes and stuff. My mom would put them on all the time. So I just loved the radio. Like I'm in radio now, but I loved AM radio, FM radio. I listened to the radio all the time because that was like how I could get other things out that, my house didn't listen to. And then just it was an exciting time. Music was just exploding at that time. CDs, so I saw us go from cassettes to CDs and then CDs to digital and so the progression. So when people ask
Did
me,
you
they're
have
like, "Well,
like the
how?"
binders? Did you have the
Yeah,
CD binders? Yeah.
yeah, I had thick ones of that for cassettes and CDs, and then we digitized everything and then got rid of everything, and now we have the streaming services, so the evolutions. But yeah, it's just interesting. Basically, what I didn't know now, then, but what I knew now is that they're just they're just different mediums, different ways of how people learn and ingest content. And so that's why I started to like figure out how do I switch? Because if you want to get in front of a certain audience, then the medium may change to get to them. Like sometimes you make a book to get to a different audience than you do for an album, than you do for, different stuff, or you do different genres to get into those different um, avenues and opportunities and stuff. So I really don't think that you set out in life like you don't know anything, so you're just like a sponge and soaking everything up. And so I can't say like I knew at the time what I wanted to do or how I was gonna do it. I didn't know any of those things. So it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Like I started out on this road and then it's like I started picking up people and team and learning stuff and asking questions and getting mentors and stuff along the way. But I think it's just, I learned as a kid to be open, to be curious, to ask questions, and that's gonna lead you down different paths. And, I just picked up one of those learning, free libraries you see. I found this kid's book of like choose your own adventure, but I used to love those books. And so,
That.
yeah,
I love those choose your own adventure books. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's basically what happens with my life. It's like I turn different pages, and sometimes you're like, oh, that wasn't a great turn. I go back and that kind of thing. But that's like, it's very non-linear, I would say, my path.
Yeah.
And everything that's popped up later, almost every time an opportunity came and I said yes, I didn't know anything about it. So they're like, "Oh, do you want a radio show?" "Yes." Knew nothing about it. "Do you wanna be on this TV show?" "Yes." Nothing about it. Yeah, like, I just had to learn as I went. So American Idol, I was out here, in 2003. So let me just paint the picture. You're outside. I'm outside the Rose Bowl, and I'm from DC, so I lived in DC, then Boston, now I'm in LA, and I moved to Boston sight unseen, never had been. Moved to LA sight unseen, never had been. Just, hopped on a plane, here I am. Let's
I
make this
love this
dream happen.
adventurous spirit of yours, Cliff. I'm resonating with it because you're just like, I'm just gonna go for it. We'll figure out when we get there. And that's
Yeah.
how I tell
Well
people.
well, it's like you if there's this story where, like, they're on the shores, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna take these boats, and then we're gonna go fight, over here." And when they get over to the other island, they burn the boats, right? Because 'Cause they're like, "We're not going back. We either fight it out or we die here. This is it." And so, that's
And is that
basically what
your
it is.
mentality?
Yeah, like, if if I had went and tried to, like, do recon in the area, like, I would find a reason not to go. So I'm just like, "Go," and one-way ticket, and that's it. You don't have an option, like, you either go and you make it work, and that's it, and that's what I loved, when I would watch, Project Runway. I tell people I watched the first season of that, multiple seasons, but Heidi Klum and the other guy, Tim Gunn, people be making these dresses, and I don't know anything about that, but, like, they'd be like, "I don't know about this piece or that piece," and he would just, like, make it work, and that's my life story, it's like, figure it out, make it work.
Make it work.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm outside 3 days in the high desert, so I didn't realize that, like, it's really hot in the daytime and then freezing cold at night, like, in high desert, so I don't know how cold it got, but I had never camped or been outside like that, so I'm just huddled up next to this other person from school that I ran into in line, and 3 days we're out in the heat and the cold, and the heat and the cold, and then finally they drag us in to the Rose Bowl, thousands of us in this cattle call, and, like, line us up in rows of 10, and then they're like, "Okay, after hours of then waiting, 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 go, go, go. Sing your 10 seconds." And then they're like, "Yo, no, no, you go to this other line." So that was when I got passed, and they're like, "You're going to Hollywood." And I'm like, "We're already in LA," but it seems big. I think if I was in the Midwest, it would've been like, "Yay," but I was like, that's like, 15 minutes from here. So anyway, I go to the second audition, meet all the executive producers. They're like, "We love you, we love you, we love you." They're laying it on thick. And then finally I get on TV, so then I'm with, the actual part you see. And that's when I, was eventually cut by the judges there. And so it was difficult. Like it was like, I remember my parents being there, and TV, it sets you up for that dramatic moment. So it's like, they've,
You're gonna make it, like, really look
yeah.
like it's just yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're like not mean, but like they want you to kind of break and cry, and then like pan into your face, and then send you out where people are like, oh, and then your parents are there and they're all crying. Like they wanted that, so I just remember being at California Pizza Kitchen. I was like, I can't eat, and I was like super distraught. But it was great. It wasn't then. So, like, hindsight is 2020 because then it sucked. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
people know it sucked. Like, it's a gut punch, and when you're young, you're just not prepared. It's like let's say you have a kid, and you're like, "Here's the photo." You're like, "You don't want people to say your baby's ugly." This is what happened to me. Like, so they're like I don't know how to tell you, but America doesn't love you. They would not vote for you." That's basically what they're saying. And so, that's fine. It's like, but the funny thing is that they tell you the truth. So behind the scenes, I hope they don't come find me, but basically they tell you like, it doesn't matter if you're good. Like the thing is, we're gonna pick what's good for TV. We need the drama. They're gonna stir that pot. So they know some people are like, we can't mold them. They're like too put together. They're that thing or too niche. We don't want that. We want something that's malleable and shaped. We can shape it. So they tell you that up front. And then also, if you've seen people after, like the contracts are crazy. So you're not a lawyer and you're signing your everything away. And so sometimes it's good to be kicked out. So I love like people like Jennifer Hudson, she got kicked off and then boom, EGOT, because you have to
Yeah.
continue believing in yourself. And so so later I finally figured out, I was like, I didn't care about winning reality TV. I just want to do music. I just want to get my stuff out there. And I was like, if I can't do it that way, so at the time I had this all or nothing, like that's the only way. But I was like, that's a way. It's not the only way. And so there are many times when people or like, I wanna do something, and people are like, "You don't have the talent, you don't have the looks, you don't have this." No, they passed on the Beatles, they passed on Lady Gaga, they passed on Dr. Seuss, they passed on J.K. Rowling. You'd be surprised how many no's you're gonna get. But I think what happens is that even when I was in conservatory, they have a way of weeding it out. Like, you have to want it bad, and you have to be a crazy person to go up that hill and keep getting beat up because you're gonna have delays and dead ends and disappointment and depression before you have deliverance, before you actually get there. But the person who gets to that point is so strong. The resilience muscles
Yeah.
you've built, because now you've built a Teflon skin. You want that because I think sometimes when artists self-destruct is because they did not prepare. Sometimes early
Yeah.
success can be a downfall to a person because there's really nowhere to go, and also if the fans turn or the business turns or whatever. You look at someone like Frank Sinatra, who I love. There was a period of time where Frank Sinatra was the hottest star, and then a period of time where nobody would turn around to look at him. And then he built a comeback. But it was very painful for him to be like all these people that he had worked with and made money for, they wouldn't return his calls because he's like, I can't make money for them at this point. And then, eventually he won an Oscar and it came back. It was a huge deal. But it was just like, wow, if a Frank Sinatra has a day where people are like, you're persona non grata, that's bad. But it's okay. I would get mobbed up too. He's like, I don't need your money. I'm going to Vegas. It's all good
Yeah.
at Palm Springs. But I think the main thing is that all those people, when they build their way back or whatever, it has to come from within. It has to be an intrinsic, internal, I believe in myself. Because ultimately, all those who had vision, people won't believe in you. So Ford making cars or whatever in the assembly line, people didn't believe in that. The Wright brothers making the plane, people didn't believe in that. Kennedy and putting someone on the moon, they didn't believe in it because that kind of vision is a very specific, rare breed of a person who's like, I can look into the future and be like, that's where the industry is gonna go. And almost every time there's a cycle of people are like, you're nuts. Then there's the second part where they're like, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. And then finally you do the thing. And then everyone now comes on the bandwagon. They're like, we knew you could do it. You're the best. You're the greatest. And so you just yeah, yeah.
Mentor
N
us.
now they're like, "Thanks for my TED Talk." Everybody's eating it up, but you're like, "Yeah, that's the way it goes." Well, because again, they don't know. Henry Ford
Yeah.
said, when he came out with, making the cars the way he did, first it was cool because he was like, "You can have any color as long as you want black, because black dried the fastest." But then beyond that, he learned, he was like, "If I was gonna ask people what they want, they would say faster horses." They didn't understand cars. They don't know because that's a vision thing. So I think all the mavericks, all the quote unquote crazy people, that are doing stuff, even like growing up, and when I read my Bible stories, you have Noah, right, building this ark. People are like, you're nuts. It's never rained. What are you going to do? You're going to get all these animals. You're going to get snakes two by two. What's up, bro? And he's building this thing and he's old and his family. I mean, people are just mocking this man. And then finally, Rands and everybody, no one has built that. Dave Ramsey, when he talks about like building your finances, like you have to build a rainy day fund. Why? Because it's going to rain. That's where that comes from. It's like it's coming. Have an umbrella, have galoshes, whatever. And so I just think that's like the thing for musicians or artists or whoever. It's like spend your time on the preparation, all those things to learn your skills, to learn how to be a great musician. Can you take the easy road now? Yes. Can you use auto tune? Yes. Can you use AI? Yes. Does that make you a great musician? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Pen and paper, learning from scratch, like learning from the history. I really respect people, even the people who are like, I never learned how to read music, but they just had natural talent and they cultivated it and built that. Like, I think there's all kinds of paths. And it's just an exciting time because I still think there's more things to learn.
Oh, there's so much. And there are so many things that you just said that I absolutely 100% love and resonate with it. But, there was somebody told me one time that they're like, I want to be prepared for when I'm called. And I think so many times you're right. People, I think they think, okay, I want this over here. But if they haven't done the steps to prepare, they're going to receive that and not be able to hold it, and I think it speaks to what you're talking about is like, you kind of have to be crazy enough to go for what you want and really have that intrinsic pull to do it. And I can even think about my trajectory and some stuff that now I hold responsibility over, and it's also a gift and a blessing all at the same time. But if younger me would be given what I have today, I would have totally messed it up. Like I would not have been ready because I needed to go through all the other steps of preparation, and I still mess it up today, 1,000%. But I wouldn't have been able to hold it in the way that I do now. And so I just love how you're like, look, people have to be crazy enough. You have to have your vision. Then you have to believe it enough where everybody else is not going to believe it, but you got to keep on going towards it and be okay with living in that place that's like maybe unfamiliar territory, but also not always widely accepted and agreed upon. So I would
Oh,
say right
yeah.
now, yeah, I mean, you have to be crazy. I mean, that's long and the short of it, folks. Be like,
Yeah,
you
no,
have
it's
to have
true. It's true, and I mean, even good examples, like, you look at Amazon. Amazon's like, "We're gonna dominate books." That was, like, the most unsexy industry at the time, and then the way they did it, they were like, "Well, warehouses are cheaper than having a store, and we can send it to you everywhere," and it's like they just kept dominating industries, floating under there, but look at their trajectory. Jeff Bezos was putting money after that company. They didn't make any money for like the first 7 years. Every shareholder's letter was like, "I'm not giving you anything. Good luck. We'll see you next year." And so then even I had an opportunity. I was working with Tony Robbins Foundation doing volunteering, and one of the students was a son of the person who created Shazam. So I was super excited to go on stage and to talk to this person. I had out of everyone the most Shazams. It was no big deal. But what I didn't know about his story, which was so fascinating to me, is that he had the idea in 1999. They released it in 2002. Now you have to remember, in 2002, there was no apps. Like there was so like you would call a voicemail, play this
MySpace.
recording. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it would text you back, and it was super like crazy. So basically, until the App Store Apple came out, iPhone 2008, they didn't make any money either. But then eventually it
Mhm.
came out, and then Apple bought them, and it was like a ridiculous amount, almost like $500 million. But it was like to have that dream, like in 99, they were like, "You're crazy," because the technology didn't exist. They were like, "How do you hear on this broken speaker in a grocery store above all the talking and the clanking what this song is? Send it to something and then, clean it up and it can understand that." That was already a crazy thing. And then it was like, now we have built this crazy thing, but we can't get it to anybody because the technology has to catch up. And we have to believe and lose money for, 6, 7, 8 years, which is very typical before you do it. Same with pharmaceuticals, same with anything else. But again, you have to just constantly believe it's gonna come. We're
Yeah, it's
early,
gonna work. This is
but
gonna
it's gonna
work.
come.
Yeah.
But that's the
Yes.
craziness. Mhm.
Well, I want to ask you, for you, what is something in your life that you believe this is going to come that has came to reality?
Oh my gosh.
Like that you're
So
like, I know
y
this is going to happen. I just
y
don't know when. And like,
y
I'm just holding on to the vision like that
yeah.
story we've been talking about.
Yeah, it was crazy. So in 2018, 2019, I had been making some records on my own since 2013, and we've had some moderate success, but I had never had like out of the box explosive success. And so I ended up working with this group, Mestizo B, out of Topanga, who I had met when they were teenagers. I was in my 20s. They saw me playing music. I forgot all about it. Then I was recording in a studio by Sergio Rios of Orgon. It's called Kilian Sound. And they had been recording there. And so he played me some tracks of them. I was like, well, if they're based in Topanga, they must know this one person in Topanga that knows everybody. So I call him. I was like, do you know them? He's like, yes, I'm managing them. I just knew they all knew each other. So he connected me with them. And I was working on this song, and I remember writing it at the time, and I was like, "This is the cheesiest song I've ever written, like, nobody's gonna care." It was like, "Learn to love yourself, you're good
Go
enough."
ahead,
I was
sing
like,
it for us. Let's go, Cliff.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's called Confidence, like, "'Cause I'm confident, learning to love myself, living the life that I want, I ain't living for no one else," right? And so, I just went through this vibe of, "I'm gonna send it to them anyway and see what happens," and I sent it to them, they're like, "We like it, let's record it." So we did, record it, put it out, and, just like anything else, we're like, "Okay, it's out there, cool. It'll get, a couple hundred people will listen to, a couple thousand, cool, whatever." It got picked up on a Spotify playlist and then another Spotify playlist, and this had never happened to me to that level, and I was like, "Wow, it's really getting a lot of streams pretty quick." And so, it just was blowing up. Eventually, it got over 1 million streams, and so that was cool. And then also nominated and got a John Lennon songwriting contest for grand prize for that too. So that was just like, I kept believing in myself. I kept putting it out. It wasn't my first song to have that type of success, but it did happen. And I think it was just again taking those baby steps. Like every time I put out a record, every time I put out a song, every time I pitched something to Spotify's editorial team, every time I said, "Hey, let's work with a different group. Let's work with a different studio. Let's try something different." Every time I try to do something different and say, "Okay, what's a different angle? How can we promote it differently? What can we do?" And so that just ended up to work out. But I didn't know what song was gonna do it, but I had a belief that
If
a
you were to
song was gonna
guess,
do it.
that was probably like the least likely. It sounds like almost like the way that you're telling it. Like it wouldn't be the one that you picked as like, yeah, I'll give my top 5 ones that I think will do well. That wasn't one of the ones that you would have put there.
No, no, I mean, I had other ones before and other ones after, and it's always hit or miss, so you can't do that, but the more you put out there, the more opportunities you have. So if you're putting out a lot of singles and you get those opportunities to pitch it to Spotify, you have more opportunities. So if you do an album and you just pitch it once and it has 10 songs, then you've already shot your shot for all 10 when you pitch it. But if you split that into 10 singles, you have 10 opportunities. So the more opportunities you give yourself to put it out into the marketplace, then, something can happen. And again, putting the money, putting the time to like find different things to apply to, putting it out for awards and different types of things. Because some people don't apply. I've even met people where they're like, "Oh, I didn't put the money out there because I might not win." It's like, but you might. You don't know until you put yourself in the arena what could happen and what could be possible. But don't like shortchange yourself or don't go cheap on those things. Like, still do what you can to get your dreams out there. And if you can't do it that way, like find other ways. Like there are ways that people are using social media to get in front of their audience, so, you just have to do what you have to do. Again, if you want it bad enough, as much as you want to breathe or anything else, then you'll do it. An ant, you see them crawling around. They just go over the obstacle. They have to go around, they have to go over, they have to go
Yeah.
under, they just do it. That's how you
And
gotta
they
do. You just gotta
invade
figure it out.
sometimes. I have a friend I was just talking to, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, ants are like invading my house right now." But it's because they whatever they're trying to get, there's something in that house that they want. They're gonna go find it, and they're not gonna take again, they might crawl over others to get there, but they're gonna get to that.
They can build a
Signal.
bridge. Have you seen that? Where they all can connect in a continuous chain, like arm, leg, they can build a bridge. Like together. It's
Wild.
crazy. Yeah.
Wild. Okay, well, what is one of the things that you feel like is the biggest lesson you've learned? And I've heard a few of the lessons that as you're sharing your story, but what is the one lesson that you feel that you've learned that you wish other people would know?
Well, you mentioned something that I like to touch on a lot is people will say, "Oh, I'm not creative like you. I'm not a musician." It's like, well, everyone is creative. I want to make sure that everyone realizes, at least from my perspective, we're created by a creator to create. And that's in any arena, any realm of possibility. Like if you're an accountant, if you do taxes, if you're a chiropractor, there's always a creativity to whatever you can do because we are created by a creator to create. It is a human design in our double helix, in our DNA, in our genes, in that fingerprint. We are created to create, whatever that is. Because if you're solving problems as a business, as an entrepreneur, as a person working for someone or working for yourself, you
Oh,
are creating opportunities, you are creating things. We're created by a creator to create. And so I love talking to non-creatives because it really breaks my heart when people say that they're not creative. Because what happens is they put a cap or a gate on it. And once you do that, then that self-limiting belief is true to you. And you will now not create because you said it. Our words are spirit and life. When you put it out there, you do believe that. It creates a confirmation bias. Your mind is not going to give you more reasons to believe this belief. And so we spend so much time doubting our beliefs and believing our doubts. You need to believe your beliefs and doubt your doubts and allow yourself as a non-creative to see yourself as creative. Because what happens is that when you study the work of Sir Ken Robinson, you watch his TED Talk, he talks about our K through 12 school system. The reason why people feel they're not creative is because the way we're educated, it beats it out of you. So when you start in kindergarten, all these young 4, 5, 6-year-olds, however they are, they're like, "Do you want to sing? Do you want to dance? Do you want to draw? Do you want to do?" They're like, "Yes, yes, yes, I'll do. I'm great at everything. I'm the best." And then by the time you get to 12th grade, everybody's like, "Oh, I don't wanna stand out, I don't wanna look weird, I don't wanna be foolish, I don't wanna be ostracized." Less than 5% are like, "I wanna create." And also, it's other things, like at home or the society, they're like, "Well, you'll never make money, so you shouldn't do it." It's like, so you just want people to have joyless lives. You want them to just have no creative expression or outlets, and you feel that, we should cut when there's cuts to be made, let's cut all the arts programs. It's like the only interesting thing, that people can do, and, when people are working on that, like, why do you think someone like a Da Vinci is an amazing painter and also his brain is thinking about science and invention? Well, that's very common for creative people to create in different arenas because their mind is open to turning to dials of like the universe sending them information. So of course they would do that. In the same way, you look at someone like, in Black History Month, George Washington Carver. I find it so fascinating that nobody cared about the peanut. And this man comes and he's like, "I found 300 uses to do this." And it's like this big. He was like, "I asked God to tell me the secrets of the universe." He said, "Why don't you try this, George? Why don't you work on that?" And so it's like if you can find 300 things for something that's insignificant, at the time, you can find three other uses for so many things in your life. Marie Kondo taught people how to clean their house and to
Yeah.
grab stuff. Does it spark your joy? Like nobody cared about that. I never thought about it, but she made me think differently about it now. So I think so. Everybody, if you look at whatever you're doing now, you say, "How can I be more creative in this space?" You will be more creative for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I'm thinking about so many things when you say this because I just love this. Because you're right. Sometimes people just go automatically, even myself, go to creative as in certain aspects, but you can be creative in anything, honestly. Like problem solving is creativity. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out how to develop new systems or just teach things in a different way. I'm thinking about teachers but to your point of the education system, it really is such a chokehold on creativity many times, or sometimes it's a catalyst, depending on, I guess, who's teaching you and the way that they're doing it. But I recently started for fun a ceramics class. And so I'm like, okay, my daughter is very artistic. Like I'm creative in the way of like, you know, having a vision and then believing enough in it to make it a possibility in the realm that I'm in. But for her, she can have the vision, draw it. And then, me trying to have the vision to draw something, it just doesn't translate in the same way of the other things that I do. But I was like, okay, what's something that we can do together that's also something that's like more mindfulness for me? And so there was a girl locally who had started a ceramics hand studio. And I'm thinking about fact to 5-year-old me because she's like, Christy is the only one in our little class that really likes to do these chords or however she calls them. I don't even know if the right name of it is, Cliff. Okay. But I'm like, you know why I love it? Because it reminds me of 5-year-old me playing with Play Doh in kindergarten. Okay. I just love rolling the little line because I can remember tracing my name. But to your point, in our education system, it quickly became less about creativity. I mean, my kindergarten teacher was the best. We did so many creative things. It was so much fun. Okay. Like I can remember like she'd hang them all on the wall, whatever we do, we go outside, we explore nature. It was just a real great kindergarten class. But then it turns really quickly to like sit in the desk, answer this. There's no creativity. It's like I want you to get to the end result in the way that I want you to get it, you know?
Yeah.
So then we wonder like why people are stifled and by the time they get to their 12th grade year and they're like, what do you want to do with your life? And you're like, oh, well, where's the manual? You know? Versus like, let's explore, let's figure out, let's lean into things that we're interested in. And it's just not that way. But I wonder if that comes from the industrial revolution and all that stuff, because we just wanted worker bees to be in a
Oh yeah. No, everything
manufacturing place.
everything we do is built around control, right? The 40-hour
Mhm.
work week control. It's not a scientific or like people work the best. It's just like we can control them if we do this. So I think, yeah, I mean, I wish, you talk about having a great kindergarten experience. I had a not great kindergarten experience. My
You had a
kindergarten
terrible
teacher
one.
my kindergarten teacher didn't like me. She told my mom, she was never gonna have kids after having me in her class because I was so bad. But, but I wasn't bad, I just wasn't controllable. And so,
Yeah. You didn't
I
fit the norms and you didn't follow the rules.
I didn't, and I would wander off, and I just kind of, I talked to myself, and I just did other things, like I just was thinking about stuff, and so, they didn't really know what to do with me. But I think the thing about kids is like you have to let them just be them. They don't fit into molds and aren't cookie cutter in that way. And so, Ken Robinson, there was this girl and they were like, she has hyperactivity, she's ADHD, and she's having trouble learning in school. And they put her in this room and they just look through this viewing window at like what she does. And they're like, this girl doesn't have ADHD. And he goes in there and he puts like a boombox and he plays a song and then they leave her and like she just starts dancing around the room, like crazy stuff. But she was really good. And he was like, she needs to move all the time. That's not ADHD. Her body is just signaling and showing you like she can't sit. for hours at a time. That's not her design. She needs to do this. And so that's great because, when you grow up into those environments, you get all these labels. So I was labeled ADHD, and then, I had bad behavior and different stuff. And then people realized later, they were like, well, actually, it's just you have a high IQ and you're not stimulated enough and you need more work. So they started like overloading me with extra work to like tire me out. And so that's fine. Everybody learns and decides in different ways. In school, you also have, we teach a whole class one way. Well, if you aren't a person who learns from reading, then you'll be screwed like in that way. Or if you're an audio learner, or if you're a visual learner, like some people, they can watch a documentary and repeat back to you verbatim what was said, like the whole script back to them, because that's how they learn. Or some people only learn by doing. So like if they want to become a mechanic and they're watching someone fix a car or a YouTube video, they can do it. My dad is like that. He's
Yeah.
like, I saw people like break this open and put it back together. That's cool. I can't do that. But it's like
That's how
everybody
Brian
has
too. He
that.
can watch it and he'll be able to do it. But me, I'm like,
Yeah. Or like
do
when
it
I watch,
again.
right? Or when I watch Chop, like I see like they're like, oh, here's some onion peels and this and that. Make this crazy time. Like I couldn't do that, but it's amazing. I love seeing what people can do with food, and it's so communal. So I just think hopefully, I mean, I think people are pushing to homeschool and do alternative schools, so that's great. And I think, education just doesn't start and end in school, doesn't start and end in
That's
college.
right.
Learning, like figure out all the ways you learn and then figure out how you can learn more and do more for yourself. Because sometimes I meet people and they're like, I haven't read a book since high school. I haven't listened to anything. And I'm like, that's one way to be. But when I see people like, especially in LA, like they're like, I'm binging content. I'm like, go make content, go shoot some videos, put some stuff out there, like write a script, get it out because Hollywood's not going to do it. They're not making new stuff. They're just making franchises. So if we're going to have fun art things, we need the people to do it. But I just think there's way more ideas. There's way more ideas that could be out there if people just had that belief in themselves to like, you know what, let me put it out there. And it doesn't mean everything's gonna have explosive success, but I would love to see more. I would love to just
Yeah.
see like everybody, I would love to get one project out in life if they can.
Yeah. Well, I just love something that you said earlier that just really resonates, and I align with this statement that, we're created by a creator to create. And each of us are so insanely different and unique. Like it just always baffles my mind that again, there will never be one of me. Again, there will never be one, Christy Pennison, there will never be another Cliff Beach. I mean, it's just the truth. And I think it is a limitation that I think in our minds that we have that is maybe placed on us either by society, through our experiences, through our family structure, just through things that we're exposed to or experiences we have where people tell us like you said, maybe when you were in kindergarten, it wasn't a great experience because they're like, we don't know what to do with Cliff. Whereas, my kindergarten experience was a little bit different. But at some point they were telling me, quit talking, don't, don't raise your hand, right? But here we are. We are doing a podcast episode. Okay. Guess what? Both me and Cliff are doing? Talking. It's fun. All right. So, I mean, the reality is there's going to be people that are not going to understand you or even understand what you're trying to do. But I do think it's that limitation we put on ourselves that, well, somebody else might have had this idea or, I don't know. What if people don't like it or what if they don't respond to it or, but there's something in you that I can't, just like we're very different. There's something in each of us that honestly just needs to be out there to the world because it's been given to you as a gift to maybe give to others. And we just sometimes forget. And I think we put too much pressure on ourselves versus who actually might want to receive this or could receive this or benefit from receiving it. I
Mhm.
don't know.
N No, it's agreed, yeah, when I started working on the book, Side Hustle and Flow, in 2020, there was a pandemic, and so I didn't have music shows, and I took this Scribe Media course on how to write books, and the first thing they did is they were like, "Many people won't write a book because they're like, 'What if I have nothing new to say and nobody likes it?'" They're like, I can tell you now, there's nothing new to say. It's all been said to death. And so that was very freeing because then you didn't have to worry about that. It was just like, but it hasn't been said by you. And it might resonate from you with someone different. And your snowflake DNA uniqueness, nobody's had your exact experiences. And so that filter, that lens will be enough. Even if you're saying the same thing, we need repetition. People forget so much of what is said and heard and read and all that stuff that you can say it again and say it, slightly varied and slightly different, or just repeat it, and you're the one in front of them that's talking to them, so they're going to hear it, from you. The greatest thing someone told me, John Hope Bryant, I worked with him in Operation Hope and interviewed him for the book. We did a lot of financial literacy programs in the inner city because we wanted people to know about money and finance. And I still think it's crazy that school doesn't teach you about life in those ways
Oh, let's
anymore.
not even get on that. That's wild to me. And you were talking about Dave Ramsey earlier, and I feel like if I get hooked on any reel, it's like Dave Ramsey. But I'm like, financial literacy would free so many people. But
Yeah.
anyways, go ahead, tell what you're
No, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So anyway,
Brian. What do you say?
no, yeah, his short thing that he told me, he was like, sometimes your life is the only Bible that people are gonna read. That's all you need to know, is that
Yeah,
you're in front of them today, you know? They might not have Dave Ramsey in front of them. They may not have Les Brown in front of them. They may not have Tony Robbins in front of them. They have you. And believe me, if you're saying something like people are I see this little meme. There's like this fashion guy and he's like yelling at everyone. They're like, how do you feel like looking for fashion in America? He's like, there's a famine. There's a famine of beauty. Like my eyes are starved for beauty. It's like super dramatic. But I was like, I tell people, they're like, there's a famine. There's a famine of good information. There's a famine of someone taking the time to espouse and expand. People used to just sit, have these salons in their house, and people would just pontificate on an idea, ruminate on something. Mary Shelley, they wrote Frankenstein as a dare over a long rainy weekend. Who can write the best book? That book's amazing, and the crazy thing is that people are like, Frankenstein's the monster. Frankenstein is not the monster. The monster doesn't have a name. But actually, you know what she's saying? The villagers are the monsters. That's what the story is about. But ultimately, people could do that because there was no distractions. They didn't have television, they
yes.
didn't have radio, so they were like, let's
They didn't
use
have
our
these little
minds.
devices we walk around with, these phone things.
And you'll see, like, everyone could write, and I mean, people played instruments. You would come to people's house, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick up the banjo and pick up guitar. We're gonna play a little piano." Mama sang bass, daddy sang whatever, soprano. Like, they did that, and I think that's fun. I think hopefully, like, we're not seeing as many garage bands. We're not seeing as many people pick up instruments and play in their yard or whatever, and I think that's good development. I think that kids should do that
Yeah.
and have little bands because they all push each other.
I think we're gonna shift back to that, honestly, because I was just even talking to, again, yesterday, a group of women actually, and we're talking about being overextended and overwhelmed and all the things, and that was the topic, right? But one of the things we were talking about, I said, honestly, that I think it's a focus for anybody is just learning how to be again, because we are so overcommitted, overstimulated, over whatever, fill in the blank, that you're right. There's a missing of connection. There's a missing of boredom. Like, I have to think about to myself, like, Christy, let yourself be bored. It's okay. Like, it's okay for you to sit outside and do absolutely nothing, because I think that's when you do have opportunity to receive different, whether it be visions, creations, thoughts, whatever that's going to come to you. But I do think it's a hard place, becoming increasingly difficult, and you're not seeing those things anymore where people are coming together to create because they're at the max, they're at capacity. And so it's like, how can we create that space for that capacity that often yields to creativity, innovation, ideas, and really honestly the betterment of a lot of people,
And yeah,
so
and that space, or what they call negative space, you see it in art. You see it in ceramics, right? To make a vase, you need the emptiness, to fill it with something. And so even in music, you have the rests. When you're not playing versus playing is part of it. You can't be just doing all the time. You need the space for being. You need the space for rest and relaxation and doing nothing. You look at in the creation story, well, God makes world in 6 days and the seventh day he rested. The rest, God doesn't need the rest, but it's like you have to be able to stop, to reflect, to look back. Everything is like, I made it and it was good, but you only know if it's good or not when you look back. You have to make the thing and then look back, and it's like there. So and also you can't compare unless you can compare to something else, right? Like it's better than
Mhm.
dot dot dot. Like, so if there's only one thing, well, you really have no comparison. So it's just like, that's why when you make one thing versus 10 things, well, if you make 10 things, the 10th one will be exponentially better than making one because you've learned every time. And so I think everybody just needs to have big goals, to be like, I want to do a bunch of things. Because eventually you'll figure out what is maximizing for you and where you want to focus. But you start like, I don't know, I have to figure it out. And then you narrow it down. Like you have to know where you're going and then the best way to get there and through that process.
Well, and then you're gonna maybe change it. Like, I know for me, things that, like, were engaging and maximizing at one point in my life maybe aren't at the same anymore, but, I mean, you're right, you just gotta try it. I mean, try it. You're gonna find out, not for me." Yes. "Ooh, I'm feeling called in more in this direction," and eventually, hopefully, you'll land in a place where you're like, "Man, I love this." But I think it is that quote, and I'm not good with remembering names and details and all that stuff, that's just not the way my brain works, but it is that thing, like, "The world needs more people that come alive." That quote, whatever that one is.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's really what it is that when people are functioning in the gifts and abilities that are unique to them and the personality that's unique to them and the perspective that's unique to them, then it really does benefit others, and then it also allows them to be living in their fullest. It's just hard to think sometimes get there with all the opinions, distractions, other things that we just kinda let take over and invade, and it happens quietly. They're like little quiet monsters
Yeah.
that come up in there and, keep you
Yeah.
Great.
Well, the biggest monster is the fear. People are afraid to fail.
Mhm.
And so what would you do if you couldn't fail? And then do that. Like you're either doing it or you need to get after it, or you need to figure out what that thing is. But then, we talked earlier before about choices. You either make the choice or the choice is made by default. I always tell people choose your own hard because it's hard either way. It's hard to do the thing. It's also hard to regret not doing the thing. So the hard is out there. Or like, if it wasn't difficult, then everybody would do it. Everyone would be rich, everybody would be skinny. There's a reason why that isn't, because it's hard. But I think you just have to still do it anyway. Like if you couldn't fail, you would do it. And then if you weren't afraid, you would do it. So then do it scared and do it if you'll fail because you most likely will in the beginning, but eventually you'll stand up and you'll walk and you'll do it. And if you don't, then the hard is living with what could have been. You will regret.
Yeah.
At the end of your life, you don't want to have a lot of regret. You don't want to have any regret if you can. You don't want to be like, I wish I did that, or things are unfinished. I think the other part is like, there are people who start and then they don't prepare to finish, right? So you need to end it. You need to put a fork in it and be done because, that's what resolutions are. I don't make New Year's resolutions, but when you do, they burn out so quick because people are like, well, that didn't work, so I gave up. Like the gym is empty by the second week of January because
Oh, it
the true
is.
only the true believers are left. Only the real trainers are left. Um,
True believer.
yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that the gym is built that way. The model is that
Mhm.
80% of people aren't going to go. You don't want to be at the gym. You want to be a person that can feel better saying, I have a gym membership. That's a different thing. That's a different thing. So start it and finish it because you're going to be better on the other end. You're going to have a better body and you're going to live longer and do that stuff. Because the same way, it's like if you spend your money on health and wellness, then you won't spend it as much on insurance and triage at the doctor. So there's a hard either way. You're going to spend the
That's right.
time and you're going to spend the money. But if you invest the time, then you have a dividend at the end. If you spend the time, you have nothing to show for it at the end. And that's the same with money or anything
Yeah.
else. You have a finite amount of resources and energy and life on this planet. And that's why I believe podcasts like yours are so crucial because you want to learn from other people so you don't have to make those mistakes because you're not going to have the lifespan to make every mistake. It's like Edison took 10,000 experiments to make the light bulb. I'm not going to now do 10,000 to make my own light bulb. I'm just going to turn the light on and keep it moving.
That's so true, but think about it. What if you would never spend time with 10,000? We may not be here with electricity and the electricity to power this internet, and then also all the things that we're doing right now. So it is just wild to think, like you said, when you look back, and that's where I think we can learn from others. Then you're realizing, wow, it wasn't easy for them either. There is no such thing as overnight success. It's just somebody that had a belief and was crazy enough to keep on trying until they figured something out. Either this doesn't work or this does work. And it is, like you said, getting past that fear, which is such a hard place for all of us. But the more we push past it, the more you realize, okay, well, no, the big bear wasn't on the other side. I survived. I may not like the way that I felt after I did it, but at least I'm at least better for it because I learned something through it. So
How many of us quit? So 10,000 experiments. How many quit at 1? How many quit at 0? How many quit at 10, 100, 1,000, 5,000? You know how crazy you are to do 10,000 to finally get there? People that's beyond the point of people thinking you're crazy. Now you're just that old man living on the hill that like people avoid. That becomes an anecdote to children to be walk around your house. But it's like it happens.
Yeah.
When he now you're like, "Oh my god, we the light bulb, of course." It's like a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, when you have ideas, what do you see? A light bulb. Yeah, that's Edison. He made everybody have that
Yeah.
idea.
It's so true, and you just it listen, it's just believe it enough to where you just don't stop. I mean, I can think about even myself, the times where I have really jumped off into the unknown, did not give myself a safety net. I didn't all I had was a belief, and actually it's a little bit of ignorance, like, I didn't know what I didn't know, so I was just like, "It's gonna work." But then you go through all the hard and you realize, "Oh, this was harder. If I would've known all this stuff, maybe I wouldn't have started." But you keep going, and then you're like, every time I've wanted to quit, if I keep going on when I get to the other side, I'm like, "Gosh, dang it, thank God I didn't quit." Because it's just the reality that things are better once you just keep moving. It just maybe you're gonna go through some hard, and it's not gonna be fun. So, well, look, Cliff, I feel like we could talk. We're probably gonna have to have a part 2 to this at some point in the future, so you'll maybe have to come back on the show because I've just really loved our conversation. But if people are wanting to read this book in your perspective, this Side Hustle and Flow, the daily grind, or if they want to listen to you, because I know you, again, have incredible music out there, you're also a radio host. Where's the best way that people can find Cliff Beach?
Awesome. Yeah, well, the books, I Have Some Flow is on Amazon, Audible, Kindle, Barnes& and Noble, anywhere books are sold. My author name is Cliff Beach. Music, you can stream on any platform under Cliff Beach as well. My radio show, the SoCalSound.org, Deeper Grooves, on every Saturday night, 10 to 11 Pacific time, and in the archives. And yeah, you can also go to sidehustleandflow.net. My blog is up there, 5 articles a week for free. And sign up for our
Oh,
newsletter.
awesome.
And you can email me there, cliff@sidehustleandflow.net, or DM me at Cliff Beach Music on all social media.
Okay, awesome. Well, Cliff, one final question for you. If you were to go back to like younger Cliff Beach, maybe it was in kindergarten when that kindergarten teacher didn't know really actually what to do with Cliff, you know what I mean? Or it could have been older, a little bit older than you, but some part of younger you, and you were to go back and give yourself one piece of advice or word of encouragement or something, what's something you'd want to go back and give younger Cliff?
Well, one, I would say only listen to yourself. You are your biggest fan. You will create the opportunities. Don't wait for anyone to greenlight you. Don't doubt yourself. And then also start earlier. Even as early as I started, there's always an earlier because I'm sure I had the idea
Good
to
point.
do it before I did it. Don't wait. Don't wait. And also, don't be afraid to think big. You might not have all the
Yeah.
resources or know how to do it today, but you will eventually.
Yeah. Well, Cliff, I just want to acknowledge you because not only have you just had the tenacity to keep on putting things out into the world and then also working to just inspire other people through your music or your writing. But I've really loved our conversation. It's inspired me today to think a little bit differently about some things where I'm at. And like you said, I need repetition. That's why sometimes I can hear it 5,000 different ways, but it's maybe the one way by somebody that you hear that like really helps you take that next step towards whatever you're feeling called to do. And so I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for your time today and sharing your wisdom. And then if you're listening, I just want to, y'all know I leave y'all with a final thought. And this one has stuck out to me with what Cliff said. There's a lot of things that Cliff said. I've been writing in my little handy dandy notebook over here. But one thing that I really loved was just a reminder that you're created by a creator to create. So go create something today. Until next time.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.